Burning bridges with the Gay Women channel with this review. But what the was this film? Use your lesbian strength. I have no muscle. I need muscle in my life on a woman. Thank you. Yeah, I'm back. I'm back, baby. I've missed you. I've missed you so much. I don't even know, half of you, how the parasocial tables have turned. Where have I been? Well, please respect my privacy whilst I put myself out there on the internet for public consumption. Thank you. I love the little lesbians who live inside my screen very much. So I bought this Christmas sweater secondhand on eBay for free. And the description said that with this jumper, you will be the talk of the dinner table. Now, I do spend Christmas by myself, but I will still be the talk of the dinner table because I will be talking to myself about how great this jumper is. My sweet coffee. And I rub my lipstick off on the coffee. I'm gonna be honest with you all here. As much as I want to hype up independent lesbian productions and fellow lesbian creators, I can't say Last Xmas is a good film, but what I can say is that some parts of it are so incredibly batshit insane that I actually ended up being entertained by it anyway. Here's the thing, the final quarter of this film goes from 0 to 60 with absolutely no warning, and I kind of loved it. There is an underwhelming lesbian love triangle, a completely unbelievable marriage proposal, a grandma who has seemingly been in an eternal slumber who wakes up just to add her 2 cents to this underwhelming lesbian drama unfolding because it's disturbing her eternal slumber, and a very anticlimactic car chase involving a U-Haul van which ends up only going in a circle around the block. And I'm not even joking when I say that this car chase involving a U-Haul van is one of the funniest things that I've ever seen in a film. Not because it's comedic genius, it's because it is just that ridiculous. It's like Adriana sat there and just crammed as much thoughtless, contrived drama infused with lesbian stereotypes as humanly possible into the last 15 minutes of this film. Just because. And you know what? I can respect her to give approach to script writing. I can. Game recognizes game. So yeah, this film was a wild lesbian ride, and we all know I enjoy a wild lesbian ride, especially after a glass of wine and 3 months of loneliness. Make that 6 months, maybe a year. Just joking. Hi guys, welcome to a video, and in today's video I'm just going to be reviewing the film Last Xmas. Written by Adriana Di Leonardo and directed by Sarah Rotella, aka the Gay Women channel. If you're not familiar with Last Xmas, it follows ex-girlfriends Maggie and Julianne, whose bitter breakup leads them down different paths until they unexpectedly rekindle the spark. Cool, let's get into it. Okay, so I want to start off by saying I know there's not a lot of lesbian holiday films out there, and so these productions are still somewhat a precious commodity of sorts. And I also know that these productions take a lot of time, energy, and money to make. So I really appreciate that Sarah and Adriana took the time to put this film together, and that's why I rented it out. It was to support them, and I really hope that they continue to make films in the future. That said, just because I have a lot of respect for Sarah and Adriana as creators, I always give honest reviews and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. For the most part, the writing in Last Xmas is thoughtless, contrived, and severely lacks substance. And the general structure and pacing of the film could have also been greatly improved. For example, the introduction to Maggie and Jules as characters and the establishment of their relationship dynamic and conflict was incredibly rushed, which negatively impacted the way that the rest of the film unfolded. We get a vague sense of who Maggie and Jules are as people, but there's no real portrayal or explanation as to what draws them to one another despite their very obvious differences and relationship issues, which makes it seem as though they are a poor or unconvincing match. And whilst the chemistry and connection between the two leads is fine, it's not strong enough to justify their relationship despite their serious differences and the issues between them, or to make up for where the writing around their relationship falls short. I mean, Maggie insulting the way that Jules dresses and saying that nobody even notices her felt degrading and abusive, as opposed to part of a lover's quarrel rooted in conflict of personality, or the quirky antagonism that is signature to a lot of rom-coms, and a relationship where one half of the couple is displaying abusive behaviors is not really one you want to root for. In theory, a narrative where one half of a lesbian couple is trying to hide the other for reasons other than being closeted is a refreshing twist on a tired trope. And I can appreciate the vision. I just don't think the idea was well executed in this film. In fact, a lot of the characterization and character motives in this film felt poorly written and contrived. For example, Jules giving no explanation to Maggie as to why she had to bail on their date, especially after they had previously had a heart-to-heart about their issues, felt ridiculous and took away a lot of the meaning from their reconnection scene. Vi just randomly turning up at Maggie's house out of nowhere because she wouldn't answer her calls, and Maggie being fine with this, also felt absurd, not to mention weird and contrived solely for the sake of the plot. As a side note here, the chemistry and connection between Maggie and Vi left a lot to be desired. I know the whole point of their dynamic is that they're not right for each other, but honestly, I felt like I was watching two people who had just met and were not fully comfortable with each other yet, which for the most part made their scenes feel superficial and awkward, and again contrived, which in turn made Vi's proposal and Maggie's big choice between Vi and Jules at the end incredibly underwhelming. Throughout the film, both Maggie and Jules just switch up their feelings towards one another for whatever the plot demands in order to move forward, rather than as a result of organic growth through interaction and communication. And again, because their connection wasn't anchored to anything solid and the chemistry wasn't enough to kind of override all of their issues and differences, it made their relationship even more unconvincing. I mean, I don't expect these films to be 100% realistic, and I appreciate that Last ExMas is not trying to be a high art, authentic slice of life experience, but there's still a line. Because of all of this, it was hard to stay engaged throughout most of the film, but as I said earlier, the drama factor goes from 0 to 60 in the last quarter, which if nothing else is comical to watch. I mean, again, the drama feels very contrived and ridiculous. Vi and Maggie had such little chemistry that Vi's proposal felt wildly out of left field. The grandma suddenly waking up just to get involved in the lesbian drama was clearly supposed to be this big, humorous and clever moment, which ultimately fell flat. And the U-Haul car chase is also incredibly anticlimactic. But it was all so ridiculous and off the wall that I actually ended up being pretty glued to the screen and entertained by it. And in fairness, despite the messy writing, Maggie and Jules do have some cute scenes together. For example, when they find themselves locked in and end up finally communicating and sharing a moment, it was touching and connective. I really think the film would have benefited from more of those touching and connective moments. It would have made their relationship a lot more convincing and balanced it out against all of their kind of differences and issues. And I could tell that both actors were really putting the work in and doing the best that they could with the material they were given. Fluffy romantic endings are also still very precious in lesbian cinema, so I have to give the film points for that too. The humour in Last ExMas was very hit and miss for me. I found moments such as the distracted coffee pouring, the random U-Haul van, and the lesbian jokes incredibly amusing. I will admit I laughed out loud a few times, but other moments just fell completely flat, which made the comedy aspect of this film a jarring jarring mix of hilarious and cringy. Lola's character in particular did feel like forced comic relief, which ended up being more annoying than it was funny. And whilst she had her moments, I definitely feel like her character was over-milked in a lot of scenes. Production-wise, Last Xmas is clean enough, especially for a low-budget film. The only thing I will say is that the camera work was really shaky or wavy in certain scenes, to the point where it was distracting. Some camera movement is obviously normal, but I think when it starts to distract from what's happening in the scene, it's an issue. I mean, maybe this is splitting hairs, but it's something that I noticed when watching the film, so hey, sprinkle in that criticism. Overall, despite my many criticisms of this film, I didn't hate it, and I don't regret spending money on it at all. At the end of the day, it's a holiday rom-com, and whilst there was certainly room for improvement, it's not like Sarah and Adriana were trying to recreate Portrait of a Lady on Fire with this film. And for all its flaws, I think if lesbian holiday rom-coms are something you enjoy, Last Xmas is worth watching, just so long as you know, just adjust your expectations accordingly. Okay guys, those are my thoughts on Last Xmas. If you've seen Last Xmas, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe for instant disappointment, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye. Last Xmas, I gave you my heart, but the very next day you said you weren't gay. Wow, I really misread the signals there. Yeah.